Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm here with Thunderous One, and we're going to do a recap of what's happening in the UK, the crazy news. And for me, it's very disappointing in that I grew up in South Africa, which was a British colony. There's a lot of British influence and culture, and of course, the Church of England was very strong there. And to see this great power, this great cultural influence seeming to fade, but then also there's the inspiration of people who are finding their patriotism. These situations where you find people are posting the flag and being patriotic, and the government is torn over what to do about it. But yeah, we need to discuss this. Britain seems like one of the canaries in the coal mine, and it's 50-50 which way it's going to go. There's a popular revolt against this ideology, this religion that's taken hold of the government, but the government still is persisting down this path. And of course, it seems to be controlled by the red-green axis, Islam and communism. But we're here to discuss all of that with Thunderous. So welcome, Thunderous.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Lloyd. It's been a few weeks since the last time that we've had a get-together and conversation online. A lot's happened. It seems to happen in waves now. Just when we thought that things might die down, things get incrementally worse. So hello from me and dzień dobry from you.
Oh, thank you. Dziękuję bardzo. Yeah. Hey, I want to bring up one thing. I showed this recently, and welcome everyone. Sergeant Grinch, great to see you. Ignatius, welcome. Dude for Christ. Joel. Janice, welcome. Yeah, she's also from the UK, as you know. And Janice is, I think she's someone who grew up when Britain was great and would like to see it being great again, as would I. I mean, I think we need to reclaim Western pride, Western culture. I want to bring this up again because I showed this yesterday, but for those who are new, this is from the standard Sunni legal text, The Reliance of the Traveler, the most popular Islamic law manual in the world. And this is discussion on enemy lands. Any land that is not Muslim is called the Dar al-Harb. And the question, of course, arises, is the UK a Muslim country? Or is it a Christian country and therefore the Dar al-Harb, an enemy country which the Muslims must invade? Well, according to the Sharia law, no. Britain is a Muslim country. Why? Because any areas where Muslims reside and there's a remnant of Islam's rules, the Sharia, and even if this is limited purely to Islamic marriage and what pertains to that, for example, those are considered by Muslims to be Muslim lands. Now, of course, since 2012, we've been hearing there are 85 Sharia courts in Britain. That's like a 10-year-old, 12-year-old figure. I'm sure there's a little bit more than 85 of those right now. But according to the way Muslims see this, Britain is a Muslim country. That's why you always see them saying that. We need to understand their perspective. And of course, they will think the same of a lot of Western Europe. So, yeah, your thoughts on that, Thunderous, before we proceed?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to people that the fact that Sharia courts or Sharia law is something that is in the mindset of people now. It's come across in the media. Even Donald Trump has mentioned it in a comment that he made when he had his state visit to the United Kingdom with reference to Sadiq Khan in London. So, and I think when you say 2012, given the past 13 years and the rise of Islam in the media, it will only serve to embolden and strengthen the direction that Islam wants to go in. So this would, by implication, mean that more Sharia courts are going to be growing in the country. Now, the parallel to that, if anybody wants to question that, is I would say look at the number of female genital mutilation clinics in the NHS up and down in the United Kingdom. So I think that's a good barometer of as to how Islam is operating with immunity and impunity, where the NHS system is aware that the Crown Prosecution Service recognizes female genital mutilation as an abhorrent criminal act, yet the NHS clinics that deal with female genital mutilation deal with the product or the mutilation and the damage that it does, and doesn't report the crime to the legal system. And the fact that we've seen a rise in female genital mutilation clinics in the United Kingdom is a demonstration that there is probably an increase or likelihood of increase, that you can parallel that with the increase of Sharia courts.
Right. Harami from Israel says, welcome. She says, the Muslim population is higher than 7% because 7% is what reported on paper. And yes, this is true. But if you count in illegal immigrants, it'd probably reach 10%. And it may even be a percent or two higher, because I've seen lots of figures where, based on food consumption, electrical consumption, and population figures in terms of house rentals and the number of rooms that are taken up and so on, and the availability of property for accommodation, the figures in the UK would seem to be underreported as well. So whatever the census is, I don't know, 65 million, I've seen figures of 80, 85 million. So it would seem that the population of the UK is significantly more than what is officially reported as well. So there's some truth to that. And Sandro says it is 7% too high. And people are starting to agree. 53% of the UK believes that Islam is not compatible with Britain. That means more than half of the population feels that Islam is not compatible with Western culture, with Christian religion, with UK's culture. And yeah, there's lots of comments. Any thoughts from you before I go back to the comments?
Yeah, the thing with where you mentioned culture there, and they're not happy with the Islamic culture. It's interesting to note that atheist, New Age atheist, Richard Dawkins, recently came out to say that he's a cultural Christian, which is sheer hypocrisy on his part, or contradiction, whichever way you want to look at it. But he's recognized, and perhaps we'll go into this later on with one of the discussions that we're going to have, that atheism has probably been a major contributor in the rise of Islam in secular lands, in my estimation. But we'll touch on that later as to why I think that's
I would have to agree. I think he is also fully aware of that. I think he agrees to that as well, that he's been guilty of fostering this undermining of Christian Western culture and allowing the force of Islam to grow. And he has said the thing that comes after Christianity, no, we're not going to like it. And yes, we do not. So Dawkins is getting very scared. There's a couple of other she says, yeah, Harami, I'm from the UK. I'm just a big supporter of Israel. Okay, well, fine. Yes, that's not a problem. Yeah, Japan just elected a conservative prime minister because now they're pushing to import migrants from Africa, Pakistan, and Bangladesh into Japan, who the population are not happy with this. They certainly don't like the idea of being undermined and replaced as a population. And Japan is starting to push back. This whole global idea is not working for them. So let's hope they don't fall victim. But the UK is a test case. Will we find the political will? Or will we see what is happening? I mean, the fact that you've got these governments talking about the far right. Did I do a proper Starmer accent there? But of course, you just had a Muslim called Jihad, of all things, al-Shami, Jihad from Syria, perform a jihad, and he's from Syria. So yeah, you just murdered some people a few days ago, and this is very, very sad. And this, of course, just after these recent high-profile killings, I think people are starting to suffer from Islam fatigue.
Can I just add on to that as well? It's worth bearing in mind that this guy was not some guy that came from Syria, say, within the past, say, 5 or 10 years. This guy effectively grew up 20 years ago. So he was something like 35 years old. So you'd have to ask the question, where did he get conditioned for that kind of hatred? If he came over at, say, the age of 15, he's been living in England and living in a settler country for the past 20 years, what influences has he been exposed to that warranted him to behave and take the actions that he has? And this guy would not have been on any kind of watch list.
But I believe he was on bail or on probation from alleged rape charges.
What I'm saying, yeah, absolutely. He'd already been exposed to the police for a crime, allegedly, the alleged accusation of rape.
So he was out when he should have been maybe detained, in custody. But he was out, and then they've arrested additional people now. So this seems he wasn't alone in plotting this crime.
That's the point I wanted to get to, that there were other people linked that wouldn't have been on the watch list. So the point being is you can have, say, 40,000, I don't know what figures, is it 20,000, 40,000? Please somebody correct me or give me the accurate number. If they're on the watch list, then this is an example of how many are there that are not on the watch list, that have been living in this country for over a couple of decades, yet are still being fed an ideology from some source or some sources that make them consider behaving like this is a warranted and justified action.
Okay, that's interesting. Sergeant Grinch writes that President Jefferson wrote about Islam, stating it is not compatible with a constitutional republic and Christianity. I 100% agree, and many people are in agreement with that. I think battle lines are being drawn, and Harami says Sane Takaichi is the new Japanese prime minister. So yeah, so welcome everyone, and please, if you do like this, please do like, share, subscribe. That obviously helps the channel, so much appreciated. And Keeping the Faith says Islam is not compatible with any culture. I've read the Quran. It is not a good book or religion. It is more of an ideology. Yes, it's a political ideology. Thunderous, yes, you were going to say?
Not even, Islam is not even compatible with Islam. I mean, after Muhammad died, the first thing that happened was the Ridda Wars, the wars of apostasy. So Islam is not even compatible with itself.
Yeah. And also this Jihad al-Shami, his father, Faraj, I know, yes, as we have here, he was posting on Facebook, and his posts were mostly expressing his appreciation for Hamas and for, what they did in Israel, which is shocking. So this man, and then obviously he says, we distance ourselves from our son's attack, when he is clearly someone that harbors hatred for Israelis, for Jews. And then, of course, we had Sandra tell us that, something we were just discussing offline is I'm seeing a great deal. I mean, obviously this has to do with Prince Harry and his shenanigans with Meghan Markle. However, I'm seeing a great slide in respect for the royal family. People are expecting them to say something, to speak up, to be the defenders of the culture, of the faith. And they seem to be more concerned with, windmills and Islam and appeasing Islams and having Islamic services in Westminster Cathedral than they are with actual English, with the UK, with defending the culture. And of course, if we look at, hang on, let me just see if I can find this. If we look at King Charles plus Islamic dress, we've spoken about this before, but King Charles has a thing for cosplaying as a Muslim. He has a serious fetish for hanging out with the Muslims, and of course he's involved with the Sufi tariqah of Fridtjof Schön, which is something which is very disturbing. He should be a Christian, the defender of the faith, but he seems to be the defender of Islam. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
Well, I think this all goes back to his mother. The Queen. If anybody can watch the coronation of Queen Elizabeth, how she vowed to uphold the gospel, so on and so forth, but she has betrayed every vestige of Christianity. She is nothing more than a representation of apostasy and blasphemy, and her son is merely extending that tradition. The interesting thing is you just made a comment about the fall of respect for the royal family. I think there was a certain generation in this country that are now reaching their 70s and the 80s that are dying out, as it were, that held that view of the royal family, and in particular Queen Elizabeth. Okay, but now that she's gone and the generation of her admirers are slowly passing away, the new generation of people are probably a little bit more savvy with tech and media and information. So certain propaganda tools that were used in the past are no longer working. For instance, the royal family bring a lot of revenue to the country via tourism. Well, those statistics are being exposed now as not being true. Then you have things like the spurious circumstances of Diana's death. Then you have the number of relationships within the royal family that have been involved in infidelity. Okay, and recently, Prince William, soon to be king, has said that the royal family will need to take a new direction. And it's almost like alluding to the royal family will be reshaped once he becomes heir to the throne.
Really? Who knows? But right now, I think people are starting to rise up on their own. They're finding support in their patriotism, which I think is a very good thing. I just want to mention, and this also, Harami says, over 700 Home Office workers are Muslims. They're infiltrating our state, social and political institutions. They're using the woke left and the DEI narrative to accomplish this. Everyone's aware of the Civil Service Muslim Network, and you can see it's actually official here. and they obviously support hiring more Muslims and putting them in power. And of course, once they have a Muslim mayor in a given town, they obviously then hire an entirely Muslim administration, which means this is colonization. What shocked me was to see Shabana Mahmood, who was former Minister for Justice, now I believe Minister of the Interior, Minister of the Home, or she having a talk in Urdu or Pashtun or whatever it was she was speaking. And I thought she is the minister for all the English, not just Pakistanis, but that seems to be her interest. And of course, she has said she's a devout Muslim, which makes her loyalties incompatible to non-Muslims. I mean, we all understand what Islam is. So this is a problem. And I think it's more than 700. And when I spoke to some friends some time ago, they were telling me that even the security services in the UK are heavily reliant and infiltrated by Muslims. That's your MI5, MI6, which is very disturbing. That would be a matter of severe concern. So there's a lot more to be said about this, I'm sure. But this is, there needs to be a purge. I mean, there will have to be. And also, if you look at even Reform, the new Reform Party, the number 2 man effectively is Zia Yusuf. Now, does anybody want to see Zia Yusuf take over if Nigel Farage, who's like nearly 98 years old, right? If he, leaves, does anybody want a Muslim president?
Well, the thing is, I watched the inauguration of this mayor on TV. What I found interesting is the nature of Islam, where Muhammad said that a country would fail if it had elected a woman as a leader. Okay, so it's interesting to know that you've got all these female representatives placed in political office, yet Islamically, used in Islamic teachings, they shouldn't be in a position of office, because that is a matter
of expedience, right? But once it becomes a properly Islamic nation, they'll be kicked out.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost like this is a very sneaky way of getting the face of Islam into politics by using the soft face of a woman rather than the hard face of a man. But just going by what you were saying a moment ago about employing further Muslims in the community, as in Dearborn, the police force there got to some like 30-40% of the police are now sort of from a Muslim background because they had a strong drive by DEI.
Well, in Dearborn, before we get to Dearborn, I have a question. Would it be possible to start the civil service Christian network or the civil service Jewish network? Can we start that in the UK?
No, because that would be that would be inappropriate, because you see, you have to have a separation of the ideology and whatever.
You mean church and state need to be separated unless you're a Muslim?
There it is. Because it's Islamophobia. It's Islamophobia, you remember, because laws are going to be enacted that if you prejudice a person predicated on their religious belief, that's a criminal offence. And only criminal offence with reference to theism that's going to be implemented is Islamophobia.
And I'm amazed that, when there were the riots originally because of those girls at Southport, those girls that were unfortunately harmed at Southport, there was immediate condemnation of the far right. But yet we have a Muslim who drove into a group of people and then got out and did worse atrocities on top of that. We haven't heard a single word from Keir Starmer on which ideology, which group was responsible. Not a single word, literally. He just said, we need to stop extremism. But of course, when it was an issue with little girls being murdered, we heard about the far right rioting in response to this. But again, not a word about the ideology of the person who just committed a major atrocity. Isn't that
I think for me personally, the way I perceive it, and if the people in the audience, it'd be interesting to see what they've got to say. My perception of this is that it's not a coincidence that all this is taking place in secular countries. They all have a problem with Islam. And I don't see it as a coincidence. I see it as a tactic, a deliberate tactic to foster civil unrest or to serve as a distraction. I personally believe something bigger is coming, and this is all to serve an agenda. This is part of an end game agenda as far as my assessment is concerned.
Yeah.
I don't think the language being used, and I don't think the immigration, and I don't think Islam being empowered the way that it is a coincidence. I see it as part of a bigger end game strategy.
Yeah, clearly there's a collaboration between the red and the green. Just as a note, I mentioned this yesterday, but I just had a meeting. I just got back just before I came on air. I managed to meet with a certain diplomat who he's employed with the UN, and he is not the UN, sorry, with the EU Council, and he's got a responsibility where he may be able to, let's say sympathetic to the things that we discuss here and that are generally discussed with regards to Islam. And when he heard about me, he took the opportunity to sit with me. We've had 2 meetings now. We've sat down for some hours. I took him through the Sharia. He was shocked. So let's just say the man has the necessary academic background to correctly understand this. So he's got all of the right credentials to deal with this. I don't want to say too much about who this person may or may not be, but that said, we had a very good long sit down. He did say that the EU is infested with commies and Muslim sympathizers, and he says, look, there's a lot of pushback. You know, you get sidelined, you get ridiculed, and so on and so on. But he's aware that something must be done. I'm going to be putting him in touch with another contact of mine to try and build a network to find ways to creatively deal with the resistance that is currently the 5th column that is currently within. But he may have an opportunity to at least find sympathetic ears, talk to people. He has said to me that there are people who will not publicly say their concerns. Publicly, they'll say whatever they have to say. But he says privately, they will say things that indicate that they are very unhappy with the situation, but they feel that they can't do anything. But that said, I have spoken with him. We'll keep in touch, and hopefully we can start to make a difference. But because he was very concerned and very interested in what the Sharia has to say. And he says it answered so many questions that he had. I mean, this guy has the background. He's got potentially the ear of some very highly placed people. So let's see. And maybe as time goes on, he'll be able to open more doors, and as he gets possibly promoted and as the winds change, you know, he might find himself in more senior positions. So let's see. But we've got a foot in the door with someone who can possibly make a difference. And I've asked him to look for opportunities to maybe promote this channel, to promote what I do, to develop it and make it more professional, if that is possible, because I think we can now start to make this information that I put out and that others like me do more weaponize it, to make an arsenal out of it, to use it, you know, to show the truth to people. I think that might wake them up. Yeah. So back to you, Thunderous.
Yeah, I'm just saying what you were just saying there. People are aware about it, but they're too scared to speak up about it. It reminds me very much of Darwinian evolution, or whatever version of evolution that we're having now that's replacing Darwinian evolution, where the scientists actually know that the science doesn't make sense about abiogenesis and the progression of the cell becoming everything that's living on Earth. There's science, and but they're scared into ridicule or whatever for speaking out about these things. And it's interesting that this mentality is infested in a lot of places for the promotion of a particular ideology, which is atheism and the left. And I just want to comment on somebody that's made a comment in the chat, Catherine M. She says they squeal like stuck pigs, if anything, with the word Christian is used. I just want to say, speaking of squeal pigs, Catherine M., Lloyd and myself are thinking of remaking a movie from the 70s, Deliverance. We're thinking of remaking Deliverance and filming it in Bradford because of the number of first cousins up there. We think that it'd be more of a documentary than the movie. What are your thoughts? Moving forward.
Making the movie Deliverance. Yeah, we are definitely going to look. Yeah, I don't know.
I've stumped you there, haven't I?
Yeah. I remember watching that movie. I was a kid. I was young. I was way back. I was young. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew it was creepy as hell. So there is that. But look, guys, I believe we are making a difference. I mean, look at the groundswell in the UK. People are finding their pride in England. They're remembering their heroes, right? They're remembering their family loyalty, their fathers, their grandfathers who fought in the war, who fought against fascism. They see it rising in the UK now. They are putting up the flags. They're finding their patriotism. They're banding together. And I don't think this groundswell can be stopped. Of course, the government is trying to usurp it by, at their last conference, they obviously raised their flags and waved their flags. But I mean, I think people can see a sham when they see it. And this, if there's the political will, hopefully all of this will be dealt with. If we cannot speak about it, there will be violence. And of course, we want to avoid this. I think that there's still opportunity. I think there's still hope. I think we have to believe in Britain. I think we have to believe in the spirit of the British and even the French, as far gone as they are, and the Germans, because at the end of the day, something I've noted before, and this person asked me about this extensively. He said, what is your view of where Europe's heading? And I said, civil war. That was the first thing I said when he asked me this. And he says, yes, everyone I speak to, everybody I speak to agrees that this is going to happen, which is, that's just a common sentiment. But let's hope we can find a diplomatic solution. Let's hope we can talk about this. But if we find our courage again, if we find our pride in our, and I say our, and I'm a black guy from Africa, right? and you're a brown guy of Pakistani extraction living in the UK, but I see myself as a Westerner, right? For me, Africa was always to the north of the border. It might seem strange, right? That's how I was raised. I mean, so I'm sure I'm born in Africa, but I also see Africa, tribal Africa, is not something I'm part of. I'm part of Africa, but my culture is British. My culture is German. My culture is European, Western. So yeah, I think we can find our Christian roots. I think we can find our cultural roots, and I think we can find pride. We have lots of reason to be proud. Now, granted, lots of people won't credit me with being part of Western culture for whatever reasons. Those people do exist. I do hear from them from time to time, but there's a lot to be proud of. And I don't think that a bunch of camel herders who were shagging camels in the 6th century, are genuinely an issue for us to deal with. I think we're quite capable of doing so, because I do not want people to remember that from the late 1800s, Germany, other countries were capable of, shall we say, dealing with their enemies and terminating their existences at an industrial scale. If there is one group that is incredibly good at this on the short term, it is the Europeans, and I think their enemies will discover that. But let's hope it doesn't go there. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
No, I agree. I, as I say before the show, I have a different view as to where all of this is heading, in my estimation. But just moving forward, I have my own view about where all this is heading. I think it's heading with an end game agenda, and I think all these things are strategies that are being played. And from what I've seen in the past, say 10 years, I have observed with my own eyes in my lifetime a cohesive society that has been splintered into 1,000 shards of divisiveness.
Right. Very interesting. Arami says, I'm ex-Muslim and I voiced my concerns about immigration to a social worker. The police were called and they told me that they would detain me if I continued discussing controversial topics. Oh my, that is Orwellian. That is incredible. That is shocking. Wow. That is shocking. So, when I was kicked off the forum at Leiden University when I was doing counterterrorism because I couldn't discuss Islamic terrorism, I ended up making a YouTube channel. So now I've reached far more people than I ever dreamed I would. And so we can raise our voices, we can talk to people. And obviously they're afraid of people talking about these issues. They rather contain the problem and kick it down the road, but keep talking. Don't find another way. Be creative. Let's find ways to talk about this and realize you're not alone. There are others who feel the same way. And you can inspire them by talking to them, by encouraging them, by letting them know they're not isolated. None of you are isolated, and your voice is very powerful, which is why they try to censor you. Thunderous.
No, yeah, I think when it comes into the point of free speech now, and even within your place of work or at school, it reminds me kind of, are we going to go into the direction of where families were encouraged to inform on their neighbors or even on their own families with reference to association during the period of lockdown in the country? I think they used to call it riches for snitches, where there were rewards or incentives if people were seen breaching the COVID laws. Are we going, and systematically, I think it seems to me that those things are being set up, that where what the government considers controversial conversations. Notice what I've said there. What the government considers controversial conversations are the ones that we are not. No, at some point in the future, they don't want us to discuss.
So I think that's why we need to discuss them.
The thing is, though, the problem that we have with all of this is we've become too reliant on social media. 30, 40 years ago, if this was taking place, if this immigration issue was taking place, we would all be meeting down the pub. We would all be meeting face to face in locations, having these kind of discussions. As a result, now we're all doing it by social media. We're doing it by WhatsApp. We're doing it by Zoom. We're doing it by text messages and such, and these kind of platforms. So there is, if you like, a manner with which they can observe what is going on in society.
Yeah,
they may not have that much access.
No, you're right. There've been over 12,000 arrests in 2023. We don't have the 2024, 2025 numbers, but over 12,000 arrests for social media. That's 33 a day in the UK for social media posts. Now, the nearest, I think, after that is what? China with like 3,000. Russia has less than a quarter of the UK's arrests. China has less than a quarter. North Korea's got a few hundred. I mean, I can't remember the figures. I have seen them, but the UK has gone overboard, and they're trying to silence people. There's clearly fear. And I don't think that they are feeling confident. I think it's fear because of desperation. But this, I believe, is going to have a blowback. The fact that they are doing this, it simply puts people's backs up against the wall. And when people feel they've got nowhere to go, they're going to fight back. The English have nowhere else to go. These Pakistanis...
Do you think...
Sorry? Go on.
So I was going to say, do you think when you mentioned Russia, China, and Korea, do you think that those figures are low because there's been a social conditioning there to not speak out, and that's reflected by the low number of reported conversations?
Probably true. The chilling effect's already present, but the UK is supposed to be a Western democracy, right? In the term they always use, it's supposed to be a shining light, an example, and yet it's even more oppressive in that sense than these countries with very poor human rights records.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty disturbing. A couple of points here. So maybe we can jump into some of the news. Just look at some of the headlines. Mom and dad ban. One of Britain's wokest councils has banned staff referring to parents as mom and dad. So Merton Council in South London has warned employees not to make assumptions about a child's biological parents. So yeah, they said do not refer to parents as mom and dad. Caregivers is more appropriate. Chest feeders, I guess. Front hole and back hole people.
Birthing parents, that's how they refer to the mother now. Well, a birthing parent. I mean, this will hopefully end on one that took place in Canada later, but this is kind of related where several shows ago I made a comment that if everything that you look at biblically is being turned upside down, back to front, inside out, or just totally destroyed. For instance, in the beginning, God said he created a male and female. Now the world that we live in says, no, don't let your penis or your vagina decide what you are. You can decide what your own gender is without the genitalia. Now you're watching where the family unit is being systematically broken down. So the father isn't the father, the mother isn't the mother. They are just caregivers, as it were. So using language to almost reduce the relationship that you're supposed to have with your mother and father. If you use the word father, if you use the word mother, it kind of, if you like, promotes or fosters a feeling in your relationship with the very person that you've got the relationship with, whether it is your father or mother. But if you're going to reduce them down as caregivers, then it creates a disconnection.
Caregivers, that's like, that could be a nanny. A caregiver could be your neighbor who looks after you while your dad's at work and your mom's at work. I mean, they don't even want employees to use young, old, and mature because they don't want to be ageist.
The thing is, then how do you know who the person is in a relationship with the person if all you're ever going to do is identify them as a caregiver?
How do you tell police who committed a crime? The guy's on the run. I'm sorry, I used the word guy. I should say I think it was male identifying, but what color were they? That would be racist. I can't say. How tall were they? I don't want to be heightist. How old were they? I don't want to be ageist. I mean, how do you... They try to erase distinctions. They're making everything the same. They're creating sameness, the blob. But we need to be able to judge things, to make decisions. We need to be able to make distinctions. And they're using language to destroy the ability to make critical distinctions.
The interesting thing in that is that we're all using the same language, but there's one part of the community that has their own dictionary. And they're redefining their own words, so that you can take a word that we all use, but somehow for some people that word means something completely different.
Yep.
It's almost like they borrowed something from Islam, where Islam turned around and said, well, one word can have 10 different meanings or 10 different interpretations. We're living now with an ideology where they are almost borrowed from Islam, where you can have a word and it can mean 10, 15 different things.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, they do attack the family, and that's a Marxist tactic to destroy the family. This is something that's definitely a Marxist strategy. Marx, in his 10 Commandments, destroying the family unit was one of his main aims. So you sent me from the Daily Mail, murder, rape, and assault, the most common offenses migrants living in taxpayer-funded hotels have been accused of. Murder, rape, and assault. Don't you have enough murderers, rapists, and violent offenders that you need to import so many on boats?
Yeah, the thing is, though, with murder, rape, and assault, I'm not going to condone any of this, and I don't want my words to be misunderstood or misconstrued. But normally with rape, murder, and assault, particularly with assault, it normally, if it's murder, then there's normally a contention that with the person that you've murdered. If it's rape, I think there's something like a high percentage where the rapist knows the person that they're raping. And with assault, that's also the same as murder. You're normally in a situation with somebody that you've got a particular grievance with, hence why the assault has taken place. But with the immigrants, it is exclusively to strangers. They are murdering strangers, they're assaulting strangers, and they're raping strangers. That's not necessarily true of when those crimes are committed by the indigenous.
Wow. Iranian asylum seeker jailed for stabbing man 15 times in frenzied migrant hotel attack. That's in the Express. Wow.
But there's nothing going on in these places. There's no violence taking place in there. And you better watch what you're saying, Lloyd, otherwise you might get your channel shut down, because this is very contentious.
Allegedly,
you could say.
I'm so sorry. A German asylum seeker was jailed for... You know, this is so scary that you can't use words.
Yeah.
You know? Yes. Oh, wow. Harami says in 2021, reports from Australia circulated about the ANU Gender Institute handbook advising staff to replace mother with gestational parent and father with non-birthing parent. That is utterly retarded. Wow. That is just wow. And then another very interesting point. Amjad Taha, wow, Quranic Inquisition. Welcome to the Inquisition is in the house. Nobody expects the Quranic Inquisition. I wasn't expecting you. Amjad Taha said in an interview months ago, the UK has more extremists than the Middle East. And he warned years ago that if you don't stop this crazy immigration, that's exactly what will happen. The journalist reacted as though she was told about the weather. Yeah. I mean, they don't want to hear this. Yeah, but he's right.
Even Gaddafi said the same thing as well. He's not the only guy. Gaddafi said the same thing. We're talking about his own elimination from Libya, that he was the bulwark stopping all of this coming in from Africa.
So, yeah, an Iranian migrant, he attacked an asylum seeker. So, yeah, but I guess they both from the religion of peace. So that's good. Let's see. English mum evicted for migrants. Because that's what you do. Migrant confronted after English mom and kids were evicted so 6 foreign men could move in. That's
Didn't I say that to you? Didn't I say that to you several months ago when the government announced that they were looking to remove people, the immigrants from hotels and to go into move them into private landlords? That the landlords will get 5-year contracts, they'll get maintenance on the properties, and after the 5-year contract is terminated, that the properties will be refurbished. And that's if indeed in 5 years' time that they're going to take the immigrants and put them in a house of their own. If not, then the 5-year contract will be extended. But the revenue stream that will come from this is going to make landlords look at that and think, well, why would I have this person here pay me £700 a month or £1,000 a month or maybe £1,200 a month, whatever the fee is, when I can move an immigrant in, or maybe 2 or maybe 3, and it does 2 things. It's 10,000 a month, yeah, and it scatters all these immigrants all over the country, so you don't get the protests outside the hotels anymore, so you don't get the concentrate at the hotels. Where would you go? You'll know they're in your community, but you wouldn't know where.
Wow.
So
this is shameful. This is utterly shameful.
I think Janice, you might recall, we had this discussion when we were speaking to Lloyd off air one time as well, where you came on and you made some comments about this as well, about this is taking place. It's all very real. And if you're a business person that's got several properties, it's going to be very hard to resist revenue.
I am, you know, I can't express the sense of anger that I have at learning this, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. And it's like they're laughing in your face, and they're profiting that this is, I don't know, it's like getting your 30 pieces of silver for doing evil when you are evicting a mother with children and leaving them potentially on the street, and taking men that shouldn't even be in the country, that have broken in, that are there for welfare, that provide no benefit to the country. It is, wow.
But Lloyd, when you've got a 5-year contract, you're getting regular maintenance on the property by a government representative, and at the end of the 5-year contract, if it is not extended, you're going to get the property refurbished. It's how, if you're a landlord, it's going to be nigh on impossible for you to refuse.
Man, shocking. Keeping the faces. In the US, we used to say, live your life as you wish. Yeah, sure, live and let live. Just leave me alone. But now they're trying to make everyone accommodate their way of life, and people are pushing back and tired of this nonsense. And this is true. And I mean, look, we have to keep the faith. You have to believe that there's going to be, that reason will reassert itself eventually, that sense will eventually make a comeback. And I think this is the case. People are waking up. People are seeing this. They can't hide this anymore. And at some point, I think that there will be the will. People are forming the will. It's whether the politicians will go. But I don't think you can wait another 4 or 5 years for another election in the UK. I think that's something. Keir Stalin is now the most unpopular prime minister in UK history. The single most unpopular man to ever hold that office. I don't know if he will make it. I mean, people are placing bets that he's not going to make it. And yeah, I mean, so hopefully that government collapses, and a reasonable government. I don't think Farage is the answer to everything, but he's better than what they have right now. Of course, you've got to look up for Zia Yusuf in the wings. But I think Rupert, what's his name? Rupert Lowe is the guy that you really want right now. And let's hope he decides to run for office. Failing that, you've got, the short English guy that was kicked out of Reform with Rupert Lowe. He's Pakistani heritage as well, but he's fantastic.
Ben Habib.
Ben Habib. He's brilliant. I mean, the guy's such an intelligent man. And I think I think he's more, I mean, I think he's got his head square on his shoulders. I'm not sure about Farage.
I will say I don't vote. All right? I have no faith in man-made governments. My faith is in the kingdom that Jesus spoke to us about praying for and advertising, and Daniel 2:44 ultimately. But I find it, but with all the politicians that I've ever seen in my lifetime, there's only ever been 2 that I've ever had any kind of respect for. And Ben Habib is one of them. The other one was a Labour leader. I think his name was, I forget what his name is now, who died just before Tony Blair took over the Labour Party. He was a lawyer or a barrister. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, Ben Habib is probably the second politician in my life that I've ever had any respect for.
Yeah, no, he's good. I'm not so sure about. I'm definitely.
And Gary G. Gary G says Starmer is a Fabian. This is all part of their plan. That is exactly where I'm going with that. When I say there's an end game agenda, this is all very Fabian tactics. The difference between the revolution of Marxist revolution with Lenin in the early 19th century in Russia and Fabians is one does it by revolution, the other one does it over generations or decades, implementing the policies incrementally. I totally agree with what you're saying, because that is the Fabian attitude, implement it incrementally over years. And this is what I'm saying. There's an end game agenda. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, give me 1 second, right? Sorry, I need to be able to somehow disable that link. But okay, let me see. Australia has lost its mind. I think we're all well aware of this. The Australians have lost their tiny little minds. Austrian court apparently is allowing the use of Islamic Sharia law in private contracts. So that makes Austria another Muslim country. Can be used for arbitration purposes for the European country if the contract party. Why are you allowing a foothold for a parallel competing legal system?
Amazing. I mean, this goes back to many shows that you did last year. I think maybe the year before, where you were commenting about Qatar and other oil-rich countries investing in the education university systems and using the power of money as a means to coerce Islam in this manner. And when I look at things like this, it just reminds me of those discussions that you had, where you started pulling out the facts of the contributions and the influences this money has in certain universities in secular countries. To me, I read this and it's like a demonstration of what you said.
Yeah, let me see. So, but I mean, the Austrians, yeah, I hope that they get themselves sorted out. I've got so many tabs open that I'm trying to, this was horrific. I mean, you had the Ukrainian girl that, the incident on the train that was horrific. You had the Charlie Kirk incident, which was horrific. There's this, and these are starting to really make a psychological impact, I think, on people. And these are not going away. And also, I think these crimes I believe that these crimes have something's changed, especially since Charlie Kirk. It started with Irena Zarutska, who obviously, suffered severe harm at the hands of this person who should have been in prison. And I do believe that the judiciary, the people who let this person out, I mean, they were convicted 14 times, or they were let out 14 times or something. These people need to be these judges, these lawyers who, I mean, especially all these judges, they need to be convicted. They need to be brought up on charges. I mean, they are responsible. Their hands are covered in blood. But that changed something. And then this Charlie Kirk incident. And you know what was interesting? That after the incident, right, these people were celebrating. These people were gleeful over these deaths, which is nothing short of evil. But now they want to suddenly calm the temperature down. I think they've just remembered which side, like if you look at the US, I think they've just recalled which side actually eats their protein and actually owns all of the automatic weapons, right? I think they've realized that it's those country bumpkins they were making fun of that actually go to shooting classes and actually go and do their, martial arts and actually know how to fight and actually own tens of millions of guns in the US. And I think they're kind of realizing, maybe, and now they're asking that, we need to, but then they're saying, look, if we need to cool the temperature down and you guys need to cool down. But they insulted these people. They spoke ill of these people. They laughed at these people's grief. And now they want to say, well, look, you need to to forgive us if you want to find peace and harmony and for us all to get along. But I think they've pushed too far, and I think people are saying, okay, look, keep pushing, you do that, but pretty soon retribution will come. And retribution is not open vengeance. Retribution means a punishment for a crime that has happened. Right? Retribution is normal, legal. But I think that something has changed, and people are going, fine, you've declared war on us, you've decided you can harm us, you can take our lives, and we accept your terms now, and we will play by your rules, and let's see who wins. I get a feeling something's changed. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
No, I agree with that. I think a few people have commented on some channel have felt.
Sorry, Thunderous, you broke up there.
No, how's that now?
Sorry, you broke up there for a few seconds. Just go back. You said, Lloyd, I think.
Yeah. So you and I have a very same controlled belligerence against these things, but we are not the only ones. There are other people that have a healthy dose of righteous indignation and a belligerence as well. And there's only so far that you can push human beings with this. And you're beginning to sense, as you've correctly said, that people are basically saying, well, if you want to grab all the leftists and all the Muslims, you unite, and all what you call the far right will unite. We'll go on the field and we'll have a fight. And it's kind of obvious who the winners will be. It won't be the left, and it won't be Islam. It will be the people who the media or the narrative concerns are far right. They will be the winners. It's not just by numbers, but via zeal and indignation as well.
Right. Yeah, Tom Bunnytail's asking, aren't the Fabians those wolves in sheep's clothing? And yes, this was the Fabian logo, literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. So something to keep in mind. Starmer is a true believer. He was a true communist. In fact, he was a Trotskyite, I believe. So there's something about Starmer that he's a hardcore believer. And yeah, something to be very, very aware of. Yes?
Keeping the faith in the comments. I said we need to start holding these judges accountable and also take away their wealth and give it to the victim. The difficulty that you don't understand, we don't know what guidelines they're under pressure to be applying about human rights guidelines or processes. So the judge may well want to act in a particular way, but they may be constrained by some of the forces or guidance or process that we don't see behind the scenes. So, but many people have questioned, as you've done there, keeping the faith, the judges should be accountable because if you're not an accessory before the fact, you're an accessory after the fact. So, yeah, your point's taken.
Yeah, I was just, Cassandra just mentioned I've got a Nazi penguin behind me. I've got a couple of things. Hold on, let me just zoom in here a bit more. Yeah, okay, I'm at maximum zoom now, so I can't zoom any further. This is, of course, let me just see. That's going to be Jan Sobieski's, well, this is a nod to the Battle of Vienna. That is a winged hussar. They were the finest heavy cavalry in history. These guys were the most successful, finest horse cavalry ever. They were phenomenally devastating. They're Polish, the winged hussars. I got that as a Christmas gift. It's a beautiful, beautiful statue. This one is a Grom soldier. That's a Polish special forces soldier, and this is from the Grom Championships this year. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and it's hosted by former Grom soldiers. I was invited along, and I went along as a guest, and I got a whole gift pack from them, which is very kind. So that is a Polish special forces. That's the equivalent of the Delta Force in the US. A little bit like the SEALs, but then just so everyone knows, let me just see. This is my original close protection badge from South Africa. That was my new one. Then this badge, this is Grom Group, and that's a group that hosts this event. And this I got along with some other things from the group that now runs the Grom Challenge, and they also have Grom training. So I'm actually waiting to go on a sniper school training. That'll be a lot of fun. This is Finnish police. I actually got this from a police officer who's also part of the special unit that protects the Finnish president. I was there and I did some training one time. And then this guy I got, it's actually a paperweight. This guy's actually a paperweight, and I got that at a Christmas market some years ago. So I actually have a photo of the market. It's beautiful Polish Christmas market. And then just so you know, I put up these shelves to put my stuff, and my wife just wandered on in and just stuffed all her soft toys on it. So, unfortunately, I put this up. This is my room. I put my things, next thing I know, I walk in and she's jamming all these little cuddly toys in there, making me look gay, but whatever. So this, actually, hold on. Yep.
You've set something. You say you've set something up, and your wife has come and infiltrated and took up ownership.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a representation of what you're having to deal with in your discussions over immigration.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. By the way, so this that you see here, this is my South African Martial Arts Hall of Fame medal, and it says it's South African Martial Arts Hall of Fame. That says honored by your peers, and it's for contribution to the martial sciences, I believe. So that's my Martial Arts Hall of Fame badge, which I was issued some years ago. This from Mongolia. The camel, comes from Mongolia. When I was invited as a referee at a Mongolian tournament, I was invited to participate, but yeah, I injured my foot, so I couldn't compete. But I was there as a referee. And then these were just things that I've just bought for my wife over the years, just so you know. So just in case everyone's asking about that's a stopwatch. That's an old German stopwatch, an Olympic style stopwatch. Bugger that. Let me anyway. So just so you know what those things are. Yeah, and I've got a few other things hovering around, but yeah, never mind. Yeah, back to you, Thunderous. This story: girl brutally killed cycling home from Amsterdam, maybe tied to another. I mean, she was on the phone to the police when she was killed. Shocking.
Yeah.
And of course, always these perpetrators have multiple offenses against them.
Yeah. And this is not an uncommon story either. This is a regular feature in the media and has been for over a decade now that I'm aware of. Probably about 15 years that I'm aware of. This is nothing new. This is just standard, and it's ongoing. It's the same type of crime with the same victims and the same demographic that are the perpetrators. So this is yet again why I believe that this is not incidental or coincidental. This is part of a far bigger plot.
No, you're right. I mean, but this is like a low-level psychological campaign to terrorize people, but also it's low-level terrorism. It's below the line, so it never quite get to the point where you're going to have the dominoes fall and you get that repercussion. Things just go snap, where there's no recovering. It's just that final thing that just cracks open the doors and that just blows the doors off or just breaks the dam, and then the flood happens. But I feel like it's coming, and everyone feels like this is coming. And yes, Poland will step in and reconquista. Yeah, and then they were celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Muslims were celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and that's unfortunate. And look, we're not like our enemies, but the point is, at some point, people are going to start saying, we didn't make the rules. We're just playing the game. You made the rules. So there's a lot of interest in Poland, actually, in firearms ownership. I mean, that is increasing. They're certainly starting to teach kids to use guns now. I just took my nephew a couple of weeks back to the firing range. I was actually there. I know some people, and I was actually with a guy that's actually with he's a trainer in the Warsaw Counter-Terror Unit and another instructor with the Grom group, let's say. And yes, so I mean, people are interested. There's some skilled people here, and I think if you want to do firearms training and Germany is not permissive, then I mean, try Poland for lessons. It's a good place to come do some learning. Yeah. Should we go to the next article? So
yeah.
Wow. Tell me about this, Thunderous.
The entities enabling scientific fraud scale at a large citizen. I forgot what this one is.
Okay, so I mean, basically, we now have the medical establishment telling us if you have a winky, you can be a woman and you can become pregnant, and you need to have you need to have your ovaries checked, even though you've got a winky. And I think, I mean, if you go back to what was that Schwarzenegger movie where the little 5-year-old boy says, boys have,
or was it Kindergarten Cop?
Yeah, Kindergarten Cop. Yeah, boys have a winky and females have a vajayjay. Even he knew it, and it hasn't changed. So yeah, I think we've got ideological capture in the sciences, and that's a serious problem. But yes. So definitely.
I just want to say to the audience that between the last discussion that Lloyd and myself had and today's discussion, normally what happens is I will send over news articles that I have found that are of a particular interest that Lloyd and myself might want to discuss the next time that we have a broadcast. But sometimes there can be so much that has gone on from one show to the next show that I almost forget some of the stuff that has actually gone on that we read through before I've sent it.
No stress. Yeah, but look, French police, today there was a shooting in Nice in France. I mean, there was some guy, and there have been so many incidents recently across Europe of young boys, like even in the UK, 16, 17-year-olds, armed with weapons, going out doing violent things. Michael Petek says 20 members of my mother's ancestral clan served in the Battle of Vienna. Wow, much respect. I mean, that was a critical battle. That was an incredible battle. I mean, that's an act of heroism that will be spoken of for eternity. So, how do you say, Czechifała bohaterów? If I said that correctly in Polish. So yeah, French police killed man suspected of stabbing 5 people in. What was he trying to stab them in the neck by any chance?
It depends which God he's crying out to. If he's crying out to Alan Snackbar, then probably the throat is where they were going.
Yeah, Tunisian national with legal status who had just been evicted from his hotel. Gimme, or I will do bad things. Wow.
He probably.
Isn't that always the case? It's mental illness that caused. Isn't that so convenient?
Yeah. And the common denominator in this is the Quran, so they can't see that the Quran is the one causing the mental illness.
Actually, but it's actually one of the requirements, just so people know. I'm going to have to look up the word sane here. My mic's in the way. But to do jihad, someone must be sane, because the Sharia will speak often about sane and insane. But for someone to commit jihad, to do jihad, one of the requirements is, see, look, the prayer is only obligatory for Muslims who have reached puberty and are sane. And the very same applies for jihad. It's going to take me a while to find the reference, but to do jihad, you must be sane. Otherwise, your jihad is not of value to Allah. So therefore, this person will be sane, and they were probably egged on by their imam. They were probably picked by their imam, and he said, hey, look, I need you to do what is called a political killing. And is sane. You'll see someone here again is sane, the previous one. So, fasting for Ramadan, you must be sane. And doing jihad is exactly, you must also be sane. So to do jihad, you need to be sane according to Islam. So no, the not mentally well is not an excuse anymore. Oh boy, council leader suspended for grooming gang comment. What the heck happened?
So what did he say there?
A Labour council leader has been suspended from the party after he referred to grooming gang victims as poor white trash from Rotherham. Oh, of course. What's crazy is if you go to Pakistan and you're found guilty of rape, they'll probably kill you. That's the death penalty. But of course, in the UK, if you've been raped by a Muslim gang, they'll call you a white child prostitute.
Yeah, and they've got to keep their mouth shut for the sake of diversity, according to one Muslim MP. Remember her?
Yes.
And then the other one, then there was another MP that referred to it as, was it wolf or cat whistling or whistling of some sort? I forget what the phrase is. Almost using the rape victims as being some kind of default virtue signaling. Yeah.
So what does the audience think? I mean, what do you guys think can we do? What are the things we can do to change things around? How can we inspire those around us? What are the things that we need to do? If our politicians won't do it, what can we do at the grassroots level? What kind of messaging do we need to get out on social media to change things? This was a new one, a recent one, right? Where we were told that first cousin marriage, otherwise known as incest, has benefits. They've obviously taken it down since, but this is NHS guidance. Now, don't forget, Pakistanis are supposed to be something like 4%, 3% of the UK population, but they take up 33% of the NHS resources for issues around birth defects and kids with genetic and other disorders because of these practices. So they're 1/3 of the NHS basically just used up by Pakistani Muslims.
Yeah, and it's not just the marriages. When we have female genital mutilation and other things that are related to the Islamic ideology, you can probably inflate the figure even more so. But I think this is sort of like, this is pandering to the number of Pakistani Muslims that are involved as doctors and nurses in the NHS as well. So there's probably a reason why they've had to say something like this, because of the stigma attached.
Yeah, but wasn't it also discovered recently that various of these people, I mean, some of these people that have committed these things were doctors, but also recently it's coming to light that these nurses they've been importing are people without the necessary qualifications. They have fake certificates, and many of these supposed doctors from foreign nations are not qualified whatsoever. They're completely incompetent and have probably killed dozens of patients at minimum.
Yeah, there's been numerous occasions like that, particularly when they've been coming from Africa. They've been coming over with fake academic achievement, and some doctors and nurses have actually been found looking on Google to find what the medication will be, or how to find the cause of concern within the patient. So this is widely known in the NHS, but yet again, because of being perceived as being somewhat xenophobic or racist, these things can't be commented on too loudly.
Yeah,
but people in the medical profession that have since left the medical profession, a bit like an ex-policeman who used to serve in the police is now ex-police, would often comment after they've left the force or the service about what's actually really taking place within those bodies.
Wow. I just want to, so this one is very interesting. Yeah, justice was clearly done. Driver fined $2,000 and disqualified after death of this student. She drove an SUV through a school fence and hit 5 children, killing 1. And they gave her a $2,000 fine. Her name, just so everyone knows, is Shama-un Ghazi Zuhaira. Is that Buddhist or maybe Vietnamese? I mean, is there a special reason why someone who, why they just got a little fine and told to head off on their way? She can't drive for 2 years. For 2 years.
It's an insult. I mean, the only other case that I've seen that's worse than this is a situation that happened just outside, I think it was Oxford, where a person that was married to a member of the military drove her car on the wrong side of the road, hit a guy on a motorcycle, and claimed diplomatic immunity, even though she didn't have diplomatic immunity, and subsequently flew back to America, but was banned from driving in the UK. Like that would have any effect on her, considering she's never going to come back to the UK again. So, you know, it's not so much, you know, I don't understand, where's the justice in this? A $2,000 crime, and you look at the person's face, you know, there isn't any sense of remorse or shame, you know, when these people do these things, you know. I think that the attitude is they've killed somebody that's a kuffar anyway. So I think the comment that the person's just made there, I can't read the driver's license, that harkens back to the decision in America where the guy with the lorry went and drove across the central reservation, and the car went underneath the trailer, killing the 3 occupants, and that person could hardly read. And I think there may be an element of truth in that, where people are actually given these kind of licenses to drive vehicles, though they may not necessarily be fully up to speed on how to read or what traffic laws really are or what they imply.
Right. You know, Catholic Queen says, I can confirm I was sent to Africa to be de-Westernized, and the school I attended was supplying and selling cheats to students. I have met many people when I worked in Dubai that had diplomas from universities that didn't exist. So yeah, that's interesting confirmation. Thank you for that. We have people that are not qualified, and because you don't want to be racist, this is, what are we doing to ourselves? I mean, you know, to be kind to the evil is to be evil to the good. This is crazy. Inam Hamid, mom allegedly beat her daughter for not marrying her cousin. Are we in Australia again? Was this the UK? Or was it the same place?
Yeah.
She's been allowed back in the family home. Look at that face. That's the, wow. That is the, disturbing. Wow. Yeah, so tell us about Shabana Mahmood.
Shabana Mahmood, I've forgotten.
She's now the Home Secretary, I believe. She was previously Minister for Justice, Minister of State for Justice. But now, and then of course you've got David Lammy, the world's dumbest politician, who's now your Deputy Prime Minister, which is insane. And of course, the man has no respect for and no loyalty to the country. Yeah.
I have no real interest in the political people in politics anymore now, or observe it as much as I probably should do, or want to, or need to do, because the farce that it's become. I once said, or I constantly say rather, to people that I know that I work with, or family or friends, that growing up, even if you didn't like the political ideology, you would probably have respect for the person, because you respect that they're an intelligent person and knew what they were talking about, though you may reject their manifesto or their political inclinations. Whereas now, you couldn't respect a person for their political inclinations any more than you can respect a person for the way that they behave, and their behaviors, their comments, their political ideologies. None of them become disinterested in following individuals, like you say, David Lamb. On about the lack of police in a certain area while there was a policeman in the background while he was commenting. So
I remember that.
Yeah, I think there was also one game show or something where he was being questioned, and he pretty much got every question that was asked wrong, showing the true depth of this guy's academic capability.
And then a woman is jailed for 30 months for wearing "Allah is lesbian" T-shirt after her outfit prompted calls for her to be stoned and raped. It's okay to call.
Yeah, you've just gone down the same road I was. It's okay to say that she needs to be stoned to death, but it's wrong to say Allah is a lesbian, because you can't prove that Allah is not a lesbian. Can it be proved that Allah is not a lesbian? But you can't. You can say something that can't be proved, but you can say that she could be stoned to death or raped.
But she caused harm to Islam.
A book can't have feelings, and a God should be above the comments that the person's making, surely.
I mean, that is just scary stuff. Wow. So yeah,
I mean, look at the insults that Jesus had to face when he was being impaled, and the first things that came out of his mouth was, forgive the Father, for they don't know what they do.
But it's crazy. Where the queers for Palestine defending her?
I can't see them.
Oh, of course, and of course, how many churches are being burned in Europe and Canada and
Africa? And you might as well add Africa, because that one doesn't get mentioned, particularly with the number of executions and massacres that are taking place in Nigeria between northern Nigerian Muslims and southern Nigerian Christians.
You know what's 100,000 Nigerians are murdered by Muslims every year. And I will care about Palestine when Muslims start to care about Muslims killing Christians in Nigeria, which is never going to happen.
Yeah.
But at this point, we need to make a choice between good and evil, between right and wrong. And, at some point you have fatigue with what's happening. And at some point you've got to choose your own side because they've chosen a side and they don't care about,
But do you not think you've just used the word fatigue, but it's not a fatigue in one area? And this is why I say there's so much going on at the moment where it's proven to be deliberately a created divisiveness. There's black BLM fatigue, there is immigration fatigue, there is Islam fatigue, there's LGBTQ fatigue.
Black fatigue is often on YouTube. I've seen that a lot lately.
Yeah, so there are so many fatigues at the moment, and this is where I go, that all of this seems to be designed to create a mindset with indigenous in secular countries. So I don't see this as a coincidence. I see this, I keep reiterating, and probably the audience are fed up of me saying it, as part of an end game agenda. Because I don't even the fact the word fatigue is being used as often as it is in so many different areas, and you can see why they're saying it. They're not just co-opting a word and just think I'll just use the word in this area because I think it's a nice fashionable word to use. In the reality of what they're actually speaking against, because we're hearing about it daily.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, we're coming towards the end of the articles, so there's not too many left right now. There's just a few. I know there was one that you definitely wanted us to cover. But of course, there was a man who chanted, "Who the F is Allah?" He was jailed for a very long time. And of course, Muslims are happy with this. Muslims are certainly very happy with this outcome. But yeah, I mean,
that's quite dangerous in itself, because he's said something like that. When you go into a prison which is predominantly Muslim now, or there's certainly a strong Muslim influence, then you're putting their life in danger, because the majority of people in those prisons possibly will be Muslims, and they'll know what crime you've been put in prison for. What are they hoping that's going to happen? What do they think the end result will be when you're putting people that have
they
said
know
they're antagonistic?
the government's well aware of it. Look at Tommy Robinson. They put him in these prisons. They moved him to places where his life was at risk, where he would then be forced to go into solitary. Either he'd be killed, or he'd have to go into solitary and possibly end up killing himself because of what solitary does. I mean, you're not allowed to be in solitary for more than, I think, 15 days, and they kept him there for, 9 months? So they were willing to punish him that way. And so they know what they're doing, and this is a chilling effect. This is the whole point.
Yeah, this Sharia patrol thing, it's interesting, because this imam actually went to a Muslim shop making comments about cigarettes and alcohol or pork being sold there. But I think this is just the start, because once you've gone to, say, shops that your people of your faith are selling things that you find that shouldn't be sold, the next step would be, what do you think, Lloyd? Where do you go next? If you've gone to the Muslims who are selling these things in their shops, where do you go next? You start going to non-Muslim shops.
Selling Christians. Then you start.
So you start somewhere where you can do it with immunity and impunity, which is you against your Muslim brother. He acquiesced to your demands. People see that. They'll see that as when these things happen, the problem I have with it is that it emboldens them if people acquiesce, and they see it as some kind of empowerment as far as their faith in Islam is concerned. They see that as Allah making things happen. So it enforces their faith in the ideology, which means that they then progress it to another area. So the logical position for this is, once you've started going after Muslim shop owners that are selling or doing things that you find are not under the Sharia, then you go elsewhere and you go to, say, non-Muslim areas, start making the same demands. The difficulty is when you start going to non-Muslim areas, if you respond in a negative way to that, the likelihood is you will be arrested for some kind of Islamophobic response, or it will be a perceived Islamophobic response. Because you see, if Islamophobia becomes a law, it will then become weaponized.
Wow. Harami says, shocking. This is what I'm reading in the comments is just so disturbing. The reports of PDF files converting to Islam to gain protection from Muslim gangs. And it's that because that kind of thing is actually permitted under Islamic law, which is scary. H.M. Fogg says, I remember the Sky News presenter smugly warned that anyone on the far right would have gangs waiting for them in prison. This is coordinated. It is wrong.
Well, Mohammed Hijab has said these things, hasn't he? He's basically come emboldened on YouTube and says, we have Muslim gangsters, don't we? We have Muslim gangsters, implying that there are... I mean, for starters, if your ideology is supposed to be one of peace and tolerance, why would you have gangsters in your faith? That's nefarious criminal activity. And what are they, what kind of criminal activity are they involved in? Obviously hurting people if you feel that gangsters if you go to the wrong Muslim, this gangster is going to hurt you, as a response to your attitude.
Yeah.
Then the other thing he mentioned was that go to certain areas, and he was basically giving it a taunt that if you go to certain areas, you're going to get a violent response with your attitude. So this is what I'm saying about the emboldened nature of Islam, where they start speaking in a manner as a taunt, or come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
At some point they're going to get a response. That's the concerning thing. At some point, because I think the European fighting spirit, I think the American fighting spirit has been awakened. And yes, there will be ups and there will be downs, but I think that spirit has never quite gone away. And people are aware now, after the murder of Charlie Kirk, people are aware that, okay, the rules have changed. That's how it is. And we are not violent people, but we understand that these are the rules we're playing under. And, we will be respectful. We will be nice. However, you are now poking the bear. You are now waking the dragon. I get the feeling that when the response comes, because I think they will wait for a justification, a genuine issue, like a large-scale riot, where people are going to do something horrific, and they will feel justified in the response. And I think, look what happened with the BLM riots, for a murderer who terrorized pregnant women and was a drug addict. There were cities burned for months. But here, a man who sat down and talked to people was vilified and demonized as if he were a Nazi. His death was celebrated online, and all he did was talk to people, and nobody rioted. All people did was they prayed, but something has changed. People may not realize it, but the undercurrent is different, and everyone's like, fine, you've made a martyr, you created a movement. You didn't silence anything. Now everybody has a vested interest in this, in keeping their culture alive, and in realizing that we need to do something or we are next on the chopping block. So I think this changed things.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. We'll do this one last, Thunderous. This is disturbing. Please tell me about this. Not that I want to hear a word about it, but this is just deeply disturbing.
Well, this is now law in Canada, and I want to go back to, before I discuss this, I want to go to something else in Canada, where you can have state-assisted suicide for PTSD, you can have state-assisted suicide for mental illness, depression, and obviously if you're terminally ill. Now, in this country, the state-assisted suicide is now going to the House of Lords for a second time. On the previous show, I did comment it will pass. Just like full-term abortion has been decriminalized in the United Kingdom, you can, by implication, then you can have a full-term abortion in England. The reason why I mention this is because these things tend to happen in other countries, but then they filter down to all the rest of them. So it starts in one country, but then the attitude or law or legislation might progresses or migrates to another country. Same with the Canadian state-assisted suicide, is basically on its way to be coming into effect in the United Kingdom. This will also, but for me, this is even more insidious, because the biblical narrative has the family tradition of one man, one woman. In fact, even in all the whole world, one man, one woman, basically up until, say, about the 70s. Then you started finding that lesbians and gays wanted to start adopting children. And so it's basically taking the biblical narrative as to what defines a family has now been totally destroyed by this progressive movement of two men can adopt a child, two women can adopt a child. I think there's been certain cases in certain countries where they've found the men that have adopted children have then gone on and abused those children. Now you've got three men here in a polyamorous relationship, which is basically a family of three men who have now adopted a little girl.
I want to throw up just thinking about this.
But the thing is, yeah, but it boggles the mind. It's very hard to comprehend. But I think the danger is even worse, because now you've really set a precedent as to what defines a family. In effect, nothing defines a family anymore. A family can be what you subjectively determine as a family. if that makes sense. If it's not one man, one woman defined a family, that was tradition since time immemorial. One man, one woman. For those who accept the biblical narrative, that will be since Adam and Eve. That was the pattern that God put in place as to what defined a family, and that has been progressive all the way to about the 60s, 70s. Then we started finding that the woke left started infiltrating laws and legislations and human rights, and have decided to manipulate as to what defines a family. This has gone beyond that now. This goes back.
I am sick. This is disgusting, and I am sick and tired of this. A family is a man and a woman. That is a Christian institution. It goes back, sure, but in Western law, it became enshrined as a Christian institution of a man and a woman. It is not two gay men. They don't reproduce. It is not two girls, right? It is for the furtherment of the civilization of the culture. You have children, and to claim that these other things are marriages. There may be civil unions. They could be, I don't know, gay gangbangs, whatever. But these are not marriages. They've co-opted and taken over. But where's the line? I mean, where's the line? At what point? I mean, we're tolerant. We are. Yeah.
This is it. There is no line anymore. If three men in a relationship can define themselves as a family, but why not four men? 1, 5 men and 2 women. Where do you end the line, or where is the line now? There is no line. The line was 1 man, 1 woman. That was removed. It then became 2 men or 2 women in the family.
And I mean, we all know what's going to happen to the girl. You all know what's going to happen to this girl, one way or another. There's something funny going on there, right?
Let's pretend for a moment. That these 3 men behave in an honorable way. Just pretend for a moment. That isn't the way that a child should be brought up. How is the child going to be affected when she starts maturing and starts needing the mothering that she'll get from a woman, the affection that because the way that a man brings the love and attention that a man brings into the relationship is different to the way that a mother brings up a child. They're 2 totally different types of relationship a child have with a parent. So I don't understand how she's turned out mentally or emotionally, and also the stigma when she goes to school and there are going to be people there that have what we would call a proper family, 1 man, 1 woman, but she's been raised by 3 men. But then that's how this starts. And then if people with nefarious attitudes towards children can now see this as an opportunity to manipulate their way into being 3 men or 4 men, because if you are a group of 4 men that are in a polyamorous relationship, then you can just turn around and say, well, why is it allowed for those 3 men? Why not 4? This is what we constitute as a family now. This is the problem. Wow. We are witnessing Christian moral. That satanic inversion started way back, and the satanic catalyst in all of this, is Darwinian evolution, or atheism predicated on Darwinian evolution. That is the cause of all of this.
We've been told. I've seen that in the past. It was the whole Darwinian thing. It was the whole Richard Dawkins thing, and I saw it a couple of days ago. Oh, Christians are now using Charlie Kirk and all these other incidents to enforce their morality on us, to make us follow their Christian dictates. You know what? I think, yeah, damn good, and we should too. Because look, this is unacceptable, right? I think Christian morals are wholesome, are good, are clean. We should all follow the Charlie Kirk model. And I think now maybe Christians need to think, you know what? We need to be politically active, because we've been told you shouldn't be active in politics. You're enforcing your laws upon us. You know what? I am sick and tired of you are gaying all the things, and I am sick and tired of all the things being gayed.
The thing is, right, this is a direct result of people like Richard Dawkins, who has said that if you have a God belief, it's insanity, it is a delusion, and if you bring a child with theistic moral values, and he said this to Nicky Campbell on a BBC program that we had years ago called The Big Questions. He said it is a form of child abuse. He called bringing children up with theistic moral values as being a form of child abuse. Richard Dawkins now has come out recently, turned around and says, I'm a cultural Christian. But he says it in the context of, well, I like church hymns and I like church buildings. Well, the thing is, you see, let's keep it that as a minimum. I think that there's something more deeper why Richard Dawkins has said that I'm a cultural Christian. I think he recognizes that the influence that he has had, and it's on my YouTube channel where he turns around and says, with Lawrence Krauss, and there are many other scientists that have come out and said, there's no such thing as free will. Richard Dawkins has also said, and it's on my channel, where he says there's no such thing as a purpose in life beyond the subjective meaning you give your life. So when you're teaching people that that you're just your life is you're pointless, there's no purpose in your life, and you're meaningless, you have no value, and that there is no God, and everything in your worldview is something that you can subjectively create and as a morality for yourself, what outcome are you expecting? I think he is not these people like Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Lawrence Krauss, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox, all these people that hide behind academic gatekeeping that have promoted this atheistic worldview have not banked on that when you remove objective theistic moral values, this is the world that you inherit. And this is why, in my opinion, Richard Dawkins, who is accountable for all this creeping into society, because he has undermined the theistic moral values by saying that the religion is a brainwashing mechanism. So everything associated with religion needs to be removed. When there's a void, what do you expect people to fill that void with? This is what they've filled it with.
You know, yeah, I think everyone, hopefully this is a wake-up call to everyone. We've stepped out of the ring, and Islam has filled the void. Communism has filled the void.
Yes.
Atheism has filled this void. And I think we need to step back in the ring. This is our cross. Yeah.
Just before I forget, there are certain churches, and the Church of England is one of them, that have betrayed the Bible. That hasn't helped. By the Church of England and other denominations that have advocated, and you and I have, we discussed this, was it last year when we had that female vicar in America saying that I would be an abortion doula, where she was boasting on her talk.
And there's now a female who's the head of the Anglican Church.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to go there. Where this is what I'm saying. They've betrayed the church. So people are looking for some kind of moral guidance, but they can't go to the church because everything that they see in the church is opposite to what they know intrinsically, because we're made in God's image, is not being correct. So they can't go to the church. So where else are they going to go? In steps in either atheism or Islam to fill the void.
You're right. And Villainous is welcome, Villainous. Great to see you. He says, projecting much. Isn't Dawkins forcing his morality on others? Yes, they are. And you know what? I think, guys, it's time to stop caring about what they think. We've tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. We are seeing the destruction. And that destruction is aimed at us. At the end of the day, they hate you. They're not there to debate with you. They are there to, well, we know what happened to Charlie Cook. We know what happened to Irina. We know this is what they want to do with us. They will celebrate if this happens to you. Understand, they will celebrate this. They made the rules. We play the game. I suggest we play to win. So we need to reclaim our confidence. We need to reclaim the culture. We need to say, look, we're going back to what was good, to what worked. We need to go back to what is healthy and wholesome. We need to reclaim the word family. We need to reclaim the word mother and father. We need to know these are children. You treat them with respect. You protect them. They don't become little sexual objects for the use of polyamorous men in a multi-sexual relationship. I think that is depraved beyond words. It makes me want to puke. Yeah, look, guys, we can do this. You know, we're seeing how divided they are, how messed up, but they will not stop until they are stopped. And this is our fight now. This is up to us. We need to take a stand. Islam, well, there's nothing good to be found there. And with what atheism has brought, all this communism, yeah, nothing good to be found there either. I think what we have is better. I think what we have is superior. And sure, they will call you names. You know what? I'm tired of being called names. We need to stand up. All of us need to stand up. Let's just, seriously, we have better, something far better than what they have. They do not have a good alternative. We've seen how degrading and disgusting and how empty what they have is. Blue hair, screaming people, hissy fits. No, we don't want that. We don't need that. We can do without that. So please, let's just reclaim the culture. Thunderous, last word for you.
Yeah, I think there's a scripture. I think it might be First John. There's somebody in the chat can correct me where it says, "This is what the love of God means. Yeah, His commandments are not burdensome." What that means is, when you analyze what is required to be a Christian in the biblical narrative, when you intellectually analyze it, because God is not asking us just to obey and disobey. He's asking us to understand what it is that we are obeying and what we are, so as to not disobey. For instance, if you go to Proverbs chapter 2, verses 1 to 5, where Jesus said, I think it's Matthew 7, keep on knocking, keep on seeking, keep on asking. When you analyze what it is that we're asked to do, there's no intellectual argument against it, because we are asked to analyze, we are asked to understand. So it's not a case of doing things that we don't understand, it's doing the things that we do understand. So when with the comments that you're making there about unifying and standing and shouting from the pulpits, it's doing it with knowledge as to why you're doing it as well. So it's not just about shouting it, it's shouting it with knowledge as a counter to the arguments that are going against it.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think, man, we've gone through there's a lot of bad in the world. Guys, we have a better answer. We have a better solution. We are better people, right? Where did Thunderous just go? Oh, wow. Thunderous just disappeared. I promise you that was not me. Let's see if Thunderous comes back. We'll give him a minute. But really, we have every reason to be confident. We have every reason to have a genuine pride, not a fake pride, not a corrupt pride in what we've achieved as a culture, what we've achieved as a people, there's Thunderous back. So yeah, be confident. Honestly, I would think be confident and just step back into the political arena where you must, or just, for the UK, Reform UK, Thunderous just disappeared again. We'll give him a moment to come back. But guys, look, speak out, speak up, right? Obviously be smart. You don't want to have the police knocking on your door, but there are ways and there are means. Use social media, speak up, let people know. And Thunderous, you have to kill there we go. Speak up, let people know. Okay, yeah, so Thunderous, so we're just ending up. I was just adding a few cents, so I'll let you finish off. But guys, we have to do this, because if no one else is going to, if the government won't, we must. Trump can't fix everything. He can't fix everybody's problems. But hopefully he's inspired us all to take a stand. So everyone, do your part. Join Reform UK, right? Start a Turning Point chapter. Do something. Speak up on social media. Let people know they're not alone. Talk to others. Many people feel the same way, but look, get involved. Don't. You can make a difference. Just use your voice. That's why they want to silence you. Thunderous, last word for you.
Daniel 2:44.
And what does Daniel 2:44 say?
For in those days, God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be brought to ruin. It will never be passed on to these other peoples. It will crush and put in all these kingdoms. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms. So basically, the kingdom that Jesus asked us to pray for, Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, or Matthew 24:14, this good news of the kingdom will be preached to all in heaven and earth, to a witness to all the nations, then the end will come. It's a real kingdom. In my estimation, and I don't want to contradict Lloyd, it's the kingdom that I think is the only solution to all these problems. If you've got a problem with racism, the kingdom. You've got a problem with finances, the kingdom. You've got a problem with oppression, the kingdom. Jesus, in my estimation, in all these things, the only solution that we have for the world that we're in at the moment is that kingdom. And I personally believe that kingdom is imminent.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, things are not looking great. Things are certainly looking a little bleak. But guys, we have a better answer. Let's go out there, make it happen. Keep the faith, right? Fight to win here. We have something to win. We know what we're going to lose, because we're seeing hell on earth right now with some of these things. This is wrong. You know this. This is evil rampant, and I think this is our challenge. So let's step up. Let's do what we can. Maybe we can't change the world, but look, change what's in front of you. All right. So yeah, we'll call it a night and leave it at that. So thank you very much, Thunderous, for coming on. Always fascinating. Thanks to the audience. Really great to chat with you. Thank you for the active engagement, the comments. And we shall see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. God bless and good night.
Bye-bye.